So one of the exciting things that was talked about here, the drush on Shinu Tfilos, which we're looking at right now, is the fact that there are yichudim that take place between, obviously, Zochar Banuk, which is Zer Anpin, and his Nukva, which is Rachel as she grows up to his whole height. But there are other yichudim as well. And the question is exactly where is what is the energy that causes these different kinds of yichudim? One yichud is called Yaakov V'Rachel. That is a lower level yichud. That is a yichud that takes place in relationship to Zer Anpin from his chest downwards. So they're both on the chest. And we're going to see more details about this. And then there's another yichud that takes place between Zer Anpin, which is called the Yichud HaGadol, or the Yichud HaGedolim, which is Zer Anpin, and the Nukva when they're in the same height. That is, in other words, that she's all the way up at the same height as he, and this is the ultimate Yichud. So the question is that what exactly causes the two different kinds of Yichudim? So we know that different times of the day, different times of the year, maybe the Yichud is different. That's part of what we're going through in these changes in Tefillah. So let's go over here. We're on this word aval. So it says aval kashazer anpin mekabel mochin da abba be'imir eloyin. So there's different ways that the mochin establish themselves in zer anpin. So one is the lowest way, which is the lowest form of energy, which is between Yisrael, Sabbath, Tabuna, and this really produces a yichud, which we call the Yaakov and Rachel, below the chaz, the chaz lamad. But also it's possible to get mochin that coming through into Zer Anpin from a much higher place. And this all really depends on our devotion. And he says for sure, if they're getting mochin that are, in other words, it's designated from a very high place to be going to Zer Anpin, but even to Erik Anpin. Because then you see in Zer Anpin he has a tremendous amount of the light of the Ein Sof pouring into him. And so always, whatever the male gets, he gives to the female. That's the nature of the game. In order to be able to cause her to grow up. So let's read the words. I would think like this. She is able, Rachel, these higher level mochim, either from Yisrael Sabbath, not Yisrael Sabbath, even from Abba Ve'ima Eloyim, which is the higher level of Chochmah and Bina, or even from a higher level, from Erik Anpin, depending on our devotion, he says that his gadol, and it allows her to grow. Bekumasa in her height, because kumas hazer anpin, she becomes to the height of zer anpin. So now they're able to make a yichud. Now, very early in the Otros Chaim, the Rab brings in, and I think it's in YECHUDIM, that the addition of Chochmah, of the mochin of Chochmah, into any equation of yichud is what actually causes the yichud. Without Chochmah, it doesn't happen. So here we have the Chochmah coming from a higher place, or even higher than Chochmah. So it's coming down, and it's actually causing the yichud. V'hayichud hu b'bein Yisrael, shu zer anpin at his full height, l'rachel shehir hanuk to Rachel, which is his nukva. V'zercha v'yichud zun ha'gedolim. This is called the yichud of zun ha'gedolim. Let's go on. And this really makes the tremendous difference between the yichud that takes place during the weekday and the yichud that takes place on Shabbos. Because during the weekday, there is no yichud of zun gedolim. This is the fact that he wants to bring to us. This is that there's a difference between the weekday and Shabbos. So he says, "Ein yichud zun gedolim." Hanikroim Yisrael v'Rachel. So those also the names that are assigned to the concept of the yichud of Zuna Gedolim. El Rak yichud Yaakov v'Rachel, but the yichud only takes place between what we call Yaakov, which is the front of Zer Anpin going downwards, and Rachel, which is the back of Zer Anpin going downwards, and both from the chest. So the chest and the bottom, but not including the head. Shehem Nikroim Zuna Getanim. They're called by the name Zuna Getanim. Then the reason for this is because during the weekday, Mekabel Zera Mokim Rak Miyasas. That receives Mokim only from Yisrael Saba Tavuna, which is a sub part. This needs to be explained in another place, which is a sub aspect of Bina and Chochmah, or Chochmah Bina. So there's also a Yisrael Saba. This is that in other words, the grandfather Yisrael, and Tavuna, which is an aspect of Bina. So he says, ad parts of Yisrael Saba Tavuna, and as a result of the fact that the Mochim are smaller, and as the Mochim come in, and imagine this, just try to picture this in your mind. As the Mochim are going down, it's the same thing as the bottom raising up. In other words, is that the kalim that are going to receive it are moving up to it and making a yichud with it. They're the same thing. So he said, so let me say yasos. So therefore, since during the weekday the shefa is only coming from Yisrael Saba Tavuna, and therefore the nuk only grows up to the level of the chest. Now it's important to understand where the nuk was. The nuk was originally just a dot below the Yisod of Zeranpin. So therefore she has to grow all the way up to the chest in order to make a yichud with Yaakov. And if there's more shefa, then she'll go all the way up to the top to make a yichud with Zona, which is called Zona Gedolim. The Gemara is bar, as it explained. So therefore, that's where they had their yichud. It's down the bottom. How about Shabbos? But Shabbos is different. That they get actually mochim from a higher parts of, which is the parts of called Abba Ve'ima Loyan. So that parts of brings mochim the higher. It brings light from a much higher level, and that's really what the Shara Akudim is talking about. Is that when the light of Chaya, which represents Abba Ve'ima Eloyin, when that shines, it produces Yichud. So he says, Oz Nivnes Hanuk Ma'oros Elu Shenoisin Lov Zas, and now from those lights that she's getting from Zeranpin, below Kamaso until she grows up to her whole height, B'Shava, she's the same height as Zeranpin. V'az Na'asa Yichud Zuna Gedolim. That's when the Yichud of Zuna Gedolim takes place. Of the Shabbos, and when particularly, B'Shasa Mincha Mizgado Od Yosef, she's able to grow even more. Makabel Zer Anpin, Gam Mochin the Erik Anpin. He gets Mochim also from Erik Anpin. The Nimsa, the Bechol Nitoisiv Lo Rak Neshama. So therefore we see that in the weekday. We're only adding on to Zer Anpin Neshama. Now, let me stop here 1 second. And I know time is important, so let me put a hold on this. I can whip out my little drawing. So what we see here, and I want to just concentrate on this, is the concept of Neranchi again. So what he says, let me get his words. His words are, parts of Rachel. That's not, let's go to the Hine. Let's try Hine right here. The Hine call Avoduseinu hu the Sakin as Zun Shebechatzilus, everything that I'm in the wrong place. Shabbos, there we go. Shabbos ad mincha nitoisif lo gam hachaya Shabbos b'mincha gam hayechidu. Now, let me go back over that, and now I finally got organized here. Just 1 second. Let me stop this. Or I don't have to. Understand that the ultimate energy, this is my feeling from listening to this, comes from this concept of the Ramchi, because it actually represents the ore itself, but it's refracted, meaning that the ore is stronger at the end, which is the Yechidah, than it is at the beginning, which is the Nefesh. So what he's saying is that in the time where there's a yichud that takes place between Yaakov and Rachel, the Neshama really represents only Bina. It represents Bina, Ruach represents Zer Anpin, and Nefesh represents Malchus. Those three. When the Mochim are only coming from Yisrael Saba Devuna, so then that represents the Nun of Neshama. So only the Naran, we call this by the name of Naran, is actually what's coming into Zer Anpin. And as a result of that, the Nukva doesn't grow that much. On the other hand, if the Chaya comes in, this causes a Yichud at a much higher level, and the Nukva grows all the way up to the height of Zer Anpin. And then when you come to the letter Yud, which, is way, way out there, way, way far away with a powerful, powerful light, then you're you are reaching the level of Eric Anpin. That's a share for today. This is Baruch Fleischman, Tikkun Elevator Kol.